Hey everyone, I'm Joe Cherries, and this is my attempt at a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Scarlet using only Psychic-type Pokémon. Back in the days of Generation 1, the Psychic-type was broken. Being so broken was a huge reason for the creation of the Dark and Steel types in Generation 2. This run has 19 different potential encounters. Because I use Species Claws, I will only be able to get either a Gallade or a Gardevoir. And honestly, I'm hoping I find a male Ralts really bad. I already got to use Gardevoir in my Fairy run, so I would love to use Gallade in this run. My rules for the run are on screen right now and in the description below. Alright, it's time to get into this run. This time, while in character creation, I decided to go with these eyes, which clearly indicate that my character has no soul. Seriously, look into those eyes and tell me they have a soul. And even though our character has no soul, they can still answer yes to the age-old question, who wears short shorts? So let's take a look at these starters, and sadly, they're all very cute, but none of them become a psychic type. So I pick Fuecoco, giving our rival Sprogito, who will be a future dark type. After setting Nemona's wee cat on fire, we go and find our true starter, Ralts. And guess what? It's a male, so we're going to be using Gallade this run. I name him Chris Angel, and this should be a dead giveaway to the naming scheme, but maybe some Zoomers in chat don't know who Chris Angel is. I mean, honestly, I envy them because I wish I didn't know who Chris Angel was. While searching for my next encounter, I find the worst shiny in the game, a Flamigo. Honestly, it's just lighter pink. This is super lame. After catching the lame shiny, I go and get my second encounter, Drowsy, that I catch and name Dynamo. Maybe Zoomers would know this one. I didn't. After catching Drowsy, I go and do some sick parkour. Parkour! And then we're ready for our second battle with Nemona. She leads the battle off with Sprigato as we lead off with Dynamo. Turn 1, the cat hits a tail whip, lowering our defense as we hit back with a side beam that does about half. The following turn, in classic cat fashion, we get hit with a scratch. But Dynamo is pretty tanky for the early game, so it easily survives and hits a second side beam that is enough to take down the cat. Our last for Nemona is Palmy, who she terras for double stab on her electric move. A double stab Thundershock does 10 damage to Dynamo as we use Hypnosis and miss. The next turn, I repeat the process, taking a Thundershock down to just 7 HP. But this time we land the Hypnosis, putting the wannabe Pikachu to sleep. Palmy then stays asleep as we use Disable to prevent it from using Thundershock, which is its only move. I swap out to Chris Angel as Palmy stays snoozing. The next turn, Palmy stays asleep again as we hit a Confusion for just under half. Palmy then wakes up, uses Struggle, and gets a critical hit, but takes recoil damage from Struggle. Thanks to the Struggle recoil damage, a second Confusion from Chris is enough to finish off the Palmy and win us this battle. I think maybe I get a little too fancy in this fight, but we got out deathless, so I'm not complaining. After heading into the school and getting the gym locations, the Titan locations, and the Team Star base locations, we now have access to the open world and a ton of new encounters. First up is a Charcatet that I catch and name Houdini and add to the team. The next 3 mines I find are all over leveled, but I catch them anyway and add them to the box. First is the Gothita I named David Blaine, then a Flittle that I named Pendulette, and a Monotype which I named Copperfield. Then I finally find a usable Pokemon, a Bronzor, that I named Siegfried and add to my party. We level our team up to the level cap of 15, and now we're ready to face off against the first gym leader, Katie, who uses Bug-type Pokemon, a weakness for our Psychic types. She leads off the battle with Nimble as we lead off with Siegfried, whose Steel type makes it so it takes neutral damage from bug moves. Turn 1, the bug outspeeds and hits a Struggle Bug for minimal damage, but lowers our special attack. But Siegfried's going to be using his regular attack stat. We go for a Rock Blast that only hits 2 times to leave the Cricket above just half health. Next turn, another Struggle Bug does minimal damage again, but this time, Rock Blast crits and takes out the Nimble in 2 hits. Second up for Katie is Tarantula, and this chubby Yarn Spider is slow, so Siegfried outspeeds and hits a Rock Blast 3 times, taking the Spurter to the orange. It then strikes back with an assurance that despite being super effective, does pitiful damage. I don't want Siegfried out for Katie's last Pokemon, so I switch out to Houdini, who takes a 9 damage assurance on the switch. I then Terra Houdini for double stab on my fire moves, and I set the Yarn Spider ablaze with an Ember. Katie then sends out a race Teddiursa, who terras to a bug as usual. We outspeed the teddy bear and use a Will-O-Wisp to burn it. With its attack cut, a 3-hit Fury Swipe only does 9 damage. The next turn, Houdini does some magic and hits an Ember that crits and one-shots the bear. I was really underestimating Houdini's damage here, as I thought it would take a 3-shot with Ember, not a 1-shot crit. Thanks for the badge and the cupcake, sucker. The next boss is the Titan Claw, but Siegfried makes easy work of him by spamming flash cannons until the Rocky Crab faints. I then get an upgrade that is insane for this early in the game. I can trade 10 Bronzor fragments for the Auspicious Armor and evolve Houdini into a Fire Psychic type Armor Rogue. The next gym leader up is Brassius, who uses Grass types. And even though Houdini's best fire move is Ember at this point in the game, it destroys all 3 of his Pokemon with Embers. The Sudowoodo has Sturdy, so it takes 2 Embers, but we kill it and win the badge without even breaking a sweat. Thanks, Houdini. It's time for a few more encounters. First is an Eevee that I catch and name Roy and add to my party. Then I find a Hatenna that I name Valentino and also add to my party. After making friends with Eevee during the daytime and without knowing a fairy move, we evolve it into a Sylveon. Some Pokemon evolutions are just super complex. Honestly, how would I know this if I didn't look it up? The Open Sky Titan then gives us a ton of trouble. This Bombardier is a huge jerk. But luckily, Arven's Nactowl is a beast and carries us through the second part of the fight as we switch out to make sure we don't lose any team members. Giacomo is the next boss up, and he uses Dark types, which makes him a huge challenge for our Psychic team. But his level cap is 21. And at level 20, Chris Angel evolves into Kirlia, which means we can go find the Dawnstone and evolve Chris Angel into a Gallade. Gallade is going to be an absolute beast this run. In fact, I'm going to keep track of his one-hit KOs, or his OHKOs, and we'll have a little OHKO counter right here. Alright Giacomo, I'm ready for you. But as I head to his base, the gate doesn't load. Ugh, come on, Game Freak. Oh wait, there it is. Got it. Oh, we're good now. Giacomo starts the fight off with Pawniard as I lead off with Gallade, and it's time to get the OHKO party started. Gallade obviously one-shots the Pawniard with a quad super effective Drain Punch. Last up is the Starmobile, and it doesn't stand much of a chance. We go back and forth exchanging Wicked Torques for Drain Punches, and with the healing from Drain Punch, it allows Gallade to finish off this fight at full health. With no encounters before the next gym, I head straight there, but first, Nemona challenges us to a fight that is super easy, and we run her over. Gallade gets an OHKO on Rockruff and Palmy, and then easily two-shots the awkward teen stoner cat. I only showed this fight so I could up the OHKO counter for Chris. Alright, now that Nemona's out of the way, we can face off against Iono, the electric-type gym leader. She leads off the battle with Watchroll as we lead off with who else but Mind Freak himself. Turn 1, I set up a Swords Dance as the bird hits a Pluck for around a third. The following turn, we set up a second Swords Dance as another Pluck takes us to the red. At +4, a resisted Drain Punch is then enough to take down the electric bird and heal Chris up to around 2/3 health. Iono then sends out Belly Bolt, so I take this chance to set up a final Swords Dance for +6 attack as the chubby frog hits a spark, not even dealing half of our remaining HP. At +6, a Drain Punch easily OHKOs the Belly Bolt. The following turn, Luxio lowers our attack, putting us at +5, but that doesn't really matter. A +5 Drain Punch is more than enough to take out the Electric Lion. Outlast for Iono is Miss Magius, who is quite scary. She outspeeds and hits a Confused Ray to confuse Chris. At +5 attack, if we hit ourselves in confusion, it will deal massive damage. But luckily, Chris is a beast and breaks through confusion to get another OHKO on the Hat Coast, winning us our 3rd gym badge. Honestly, things could have been really, really bad if we didn't break through the confusion there. But why was I worried? He's Chris Angel Mind Freak. He's not going to fall for your confusion tricks, Hat Ghost. After this gym, I go scouring for items, and while doing that, I find a Slowpoke that I catch and name Teller and add to the party, sending Dynamo to the box. I know Slowpoke isn't that great of a Pokemon, but god do I love him. Alright, time to face off against Mela, and she leads the fight off with Torkoal as we lead off with Chris Angel. Torkoal's Drought ability sets up the sun, but we brought a Rain Dancing lead, as usual, to cancel out the sun and set up the rain. Torkoal then hits a weak Flame Wheel for only 12 damage, but that won't stop Mela from bragging about it. Seriously, calm down, you literally did 12 damage. We take the next turn to set up a Swords Dance to raise our attack 2 stages as the Torkoal just hits another weak Flame Wheel. An Aqua Cutter then gets a clean one-shot on the Fire Turtle with an Overkill crit to boot. That's another OHKO for Chris. Last up, as always, is the car. The car uses Screech, lowering Chris Angel's defense 2 stages as a +2 rain boosted Aqua Cutter barely misses out on the KO. Not wanting to risk a crit, I switch out to Teller, who can easily tank a Blazing Torque on the switch. Next turn, Mela goes for a Screech, that misses, and we are able to take it out with a final Water Pulse. Mela, you really should go outside and pick up that Rain Dance TM so everyone can't use it against you when they want to battle you. I want to take a second here to tell you how I train in these videos. Instead of grinding against wild Pokemon and getting random EVs, I like to do Terra Raids to get candy to prevent me from getting EVs and giving me more of an advantage over the AI. While doing these Terra Raids, I come across a Ghost-type Girafarig. I catch him and name him Jay. The Earthworm Titan is next, and honestly, this thing is really easy. Sacred Sword absolutely demolishes it. The only reason I wanted to bring it up is because I found it really funny that when it gets confused, it has giant birds over its head. I just find these giant birds to be really, really funny. Alright, it's time to take on Kofu. But honestly, Kofu is going to be super easy. All it takes is 1, 2, 3 Leaf Blades, and this fight is over. For real, Sharpness is a crazy strong ability. We head straight from Kofu into another boss battle, this time against Atticus, the Poison Team Star leader. He leads the battle off with Skuntank as we lead off with Siegfried. And as you may or may not know, this means free setup. The only way for this Skuntank to hit steel types is Sucker Punch, meaning we can freely set up all the way to +6 special attack and special defense. Then freely kill the Skuntank with 2 flash cannons. The Revel Room that comes out next hits a strong assurance, but we survive and take it out with a stored power. The following turn, a Muck comes out and it also can hit us, so we freely take it down with another stored power. The Starmobile comes out and I immediately get a free switch out to Houdini thanks to his Flame Body ability. The following turn, Houdini tanks a Noxious Torque, and then hits a super effective Side Shock for around a third. The following turn, I Terra into a pure Fire type. Houdini then tanks another Noxious Torque, surviving in the yellow. He then hits a Heat Wave for massive damage, taking the car all the way to the orange. And then I don't know what I was thinking. I kind of just start swapping around randomly. Here it is sped up with some fun music. But in the end, this final turn is how we won the battle. A little risky because if we got crit, we would have lost our awesome Siegfried. I honestly don't know what I was doing against the Starmobile. Right outside of where I fought Atticus, I can get my next encounter, an Oranguru that I catch and name Henning. But I just sent him to the box as we already have a normal Psychic type on our team. And with this level cap increase, we can get 2 big upgrades. At level 33, Siegfried evolves into a beastly bell-like Pokemon, Bronzor. Then, at level 32, Farafarig learns Twin Beam. And when you level up a Farafarig that knows Twin Beam, it evolves into a Farafarig. Hey look, a Darkspawn that's stuck in the ground. What are you doing there? Silly Game Freak, that's not where the dog goes. Alright, that's enough getting sidetracked. Let's get back to the fights. It's time to take on Larry, the normal type gym leader. And honestly, we have a perfect answer for his team. See, Chris Angel knows the move Sacred Sword, a 90 power fighting move with stab, so it is essentially a 130 power move. Combine that with his sharpness ability and we have what is essentially a 180 power base move in Sacred Sword. Chris Angel Oko's a Sleeping Bear, then Chris also one-shots the Dunsparce with a Sacred Sword, and then we make a critical mistake, as Staraptor outspeeds and hits an Aerial Ace, taking us just 5 HP. Luckily, we survive, and we get to add a third Oko to the Oko count. Right after this gym, we get rewarded with an evolution as Teller evolves into Slowbro. Right after this gym, Nemona always challenges us to a battle without even giving us a rest. But I'm excited because Chris Angel is about to get some more Okos. It one-shots Lycanroc with a Sacred Sword, Goomy with a Drain Punch, and then I accidentally picked the wrong move versus the Palmo and go for a Drain Punch, which misses out on the KO because of it. Luckily, it's not too costly as Palmo just misses a Thunder Wave, meaning a Sacred Sword can finish it off. Last out is Meowscarada, and I should be able to live a Flower Trick, so I stay in, tank the Flower Trick, and survive on 10 HP. I then hit a Sacred Sword that takes the cat to the orange. I switch out to Siegfried as the cat goes for a quick attack that tickles the bell. After Leftovers recovery, it literally only did 1 damage. The next turn, the cat hits a Flower Trick, dealing about half to our bell. I then make a play mistake and set up a Reflect that will do nothing because Flower Trick crits every time, which ignores stat changes. Luckily, after Leftovers recovery, we can stay in and live another Flower Trick. After surviving the Flower Trick, I set up a Trick Room. I switch out into Houdini, who takes over half from a Flower Trick on the switch. But thanks to the Trick Room, Houdini can now outspeed, move first, and get the KO with a Flamethrower. Man, this game really is a boss gauntlet, so let's keep going. We're right on to Rhyme, the Ghost-type gym leader. And this fight would be extremely hard if not for the crowd boost that we're gonna get. She leads off the battle with her usuals, Bayonet and Mimikyu. We lead off with Jay and Roy. Thanks to Jay's normal type, he is immune to ghost moves. And on the first turn, we Terra Roy into a normal type, giving him immunity to ghost moves as well. Thanks to this, Mimikyu's Shadow Sneak does nothing to Roy. Bayonet then hit the neutral Sucker Punch on Roy, doing less than half. Roy responds with a Psychic that just misses out on the KO, and Jay breaks Mimikyu's disguise with a Crunch. But after the turn, we get an Omni Boost. And honestly, the fight is all over from here. Because even though Bayonet can hit Jay with a Sucker Punch, it doesn't really matter. Espeon takes down Mimikyu with a Psychic, as Jay takes down Bayonet with a Crunch. With our stats boosted, their last 2 Pokemons, Toxtricity and Houndoom, also don't stand a chance. Houndstone goes down to a Twin Beam Psychic combo, then Toxtricity goes for a Discharge, but honestly, it doesn't do much damage, so we can just finish it off with the same exact combo. Rhyme, you really should stick to rapping because you're really not a good gym leader. Boom, roasted. The next boss is the Titan, and as usual, it doesn't really put up a fight as Espeon absolutely wrecks it with Psychics. Alright, let's keep the boss fights going. It's time to take on Nemona. She leads the battle off with Lycanroc as we lead off with Chris. The dog outspeeds and hits an annoying sand attack that lowers Chris's accuracy. Luckily, Chris hits through the accuracy drop and hits the Oko with a Sacred Sword. Sliggoo is out next, and this time the stupid sand attack comes into play as we miss a Sacred Sword. But Sliggoo isn't very strong, so luckily its Dragon Pulse only does 30 damage. Next turn we don't miss, so we get a sweet Oko with Sacred Sword yet again. Palmark comes out next, and this thing is speedy, so it moves first and hits a strong spark that takes us just 40 HP. We were able to get our third Oko in a row for this fight. Our last for Nemona is Meowscarada, and it will easily outspeed and kill Chris. So we switch out to Siegfried. Nemona then tears her cat and hits us with a flower trick. But Siegfried is super tanky, and after Leftover's recovery only took 25 damage. Next turn, a second flower trick hits Siegfried to just above half as we set up a Trick Room. Thanks to the Trick Room, we can now outspeed the following turn and hit an extra sensory on the cat for around a quarter. And then another flower trick takes us to the yellow. Not wanting to risk anything, I take this chance to switch out into Houdini, who gets hit pretty hard on the switch by the resisted flower trick. But much like the last Nemona fight, thanks to the Trick Room, we can outspeed and hit a flamethrower to finish off this battle. Trick Room is such an awesome move. With that out of the way, we're ready to face off against Tulip in the Psychic Mirror match. She leads the battle off with Farafrig as we lead off with our beastly Chris Angel. With the Sharpness ability, X-Scissor is pretty much a stab move, so we're able to take down the Farafrig in one hit. Out second for Tulip is Gardevoir, and honestly, I should have switched here. Because an X-Scissor is not enough to take it down, and it hits back with an extremely strong Dazzling Gleam that easily would have killed us with a critical hit. Luckily, that doesn't happen, and we take out Gardevoir next turn with a second X-Scissor. Out next is Spathra, and I run my calcs this time to make sure that I can get the Oko. And I can, so I take it out with a single X-Scissor. Tulip's last Pokemon is Florgorgeous, and it threatens with a super effective Moonblast, so I have to switch. I go out in the Siegfried, who easily tanks the resisted Moonblast on the switch. The next turn, a second Moonblast chips away as we set up a Trick Room. This battle then turns extremely slow. I use Earthquake. It uses Moonblast. I use Earthquake. It uses Moonblast. I use Earthquake. It uses Moonblast. But eventually, after what feels like 2,500 turns, we finish it off with a final Earthquake and win the battle with no deaths. Tulip, if you ever want tips on how to be a good psychic trainer, just give me a call. Right after this badge, we go right to getting another one as we're ready to take on Grusha, my Paldean Crush, and Ice Specialist. He leads off the battle with Frostmoth as I lead off with Houdini. Houdini moves first and absolutely destroys him off with a charcoal boosted stab quad super effective flamethrower. Up next for Grusha is Baratic, and it suffers the exact same fate, going down to a single flamethrower. Titan comes out next, and thanks to its thick fat ability, it will survive a flamethrower and threatens Houdini with a super effective liquidation. So I have to switch out into Chris Angel, who can easily tank a liquidation, and then adds another Oko to his count with a Sacred Sword next turn. Last up for Grusha is Altaria, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to get a one-shot on the Cloud Dragon, so I Terra to make sure a Moonblast is neutral if it gets to hit me back. Turns out Chris Angel is an absolute beast and just gets another Oko with Sacred Sword. I've never really used Gallade before, and I had no idea what to expect, but this thing is carrying this run. Every time I face off against Grusha, I crush him. Alright, time to go from one queer-coded boss directly into another. This time we're facing off with Ortega of Team Star, who specializes in fairy types. He leads off the battle with a Azumarill as I lead off with Jay. Turn 1, I set up a nasty plot to raise Jay's special attack 2 stages. Azumarill then uses Charm to lower my attack 2 stages, but that doesn't really matter because I'm working on special attack. Next turn, we set up a second nasty plot for +4 in special attack as Azumarill hits with an Aqua Tail for about 40%. I think I'll barely survive a crit, so I stay in and set up one last nasty plot. This maxes out our special attack. A Play Rough then takes us to just 46 HP before our Citrus Berry heals us up. Next turn, I Baton Pass out the boost to Siegfried. On the switch, Azumarill just misses a Play Rough. Next turn, Azumarill outspeeds and hits us with a big critical hit Aqua Tail for massive damage. But we survive it and set up a Trick Room. And now it's sweep time, as with Trick Room up and +6 attack, Siegfried can easily take down his whole team in one hit. Baton Pass is a silly move, and it's not the last time I'm going to use it this run. We then have one last Titan to finish, and we easily do so, but then we save the dog, and I definitely don't start crying. Nope, I'm not crying, you're crying. Before area, I actually have a couple more encounters to catch. First, I run into a Veluza that I kill with a Thunderbolt. Okay, next one we'll get. See, here's an Indeedee, and oops, I accidentally killed this one too. Let's go on to our third straight boss, who is also queer-coded. It's Aerie, the fighting Team Starbase leader. She leads off the battle with Toxicroak as we lead off with Jay. The AI sees that Sucker Punch is super effective, so it will try it every single time. This means I can freely set up the +6 attack and then baton pass out to Roy, and thanks to a Choice Scarf, Roy can easily outspeed her whole team and Oko it with Psychics. Honestly, this strategy is extremely cheesy, but I'm not above using cheese. Alright, that's all the badges. Literally all of them, so we're ready to face off against the Elite Four. Just kidding, it's Clive time. I mean Clavel. Or Clive, whatever you want to call him. And honestly, this is one of my favorite fights in the game. The director leaves off with a Rain Guru as we lead off with Chris. Turn 1, Chris outspeeds and hits a super effective Sharpness and Expert Belt boosted X-Scissors. And obviously, this easily takes down his lead. Out next for Clavel is Poltegeist, and we can do the same thing to it, but this time with a Night Slash. Amoonguss is out third, and Chris can keep adding to his Oko count, as this time a Psycho Cut does the trick. Obama Snow comes out next, and yep, you guessed it, Oko'd by Chris. Clive's fifth Pokemon is Houndoom, and this pup is fast, so it moves first and hits a Fire Blast that deals good damage before it goes down to a Sacred Sword. That's right, Chris has Oko'd 5 straight Pokemon this fight. His coverage is insane. Clive's ace is Quaquaval, and it is speedy and strong, so we have to switch. And I decide it's time to give Teller some time in the spotlight. Clavel terrors his ace and uses Aqua Step that Teller can easily tank. Next turn we get hit by another Aqua Step as we hit a Yawn on the Duck. The following turn, a third Aqua Step nails us to just 78 HP, and I use Heal Post, but I was not aware how this move worked at all. In my head, it worked like Recover, but obviously it doesn't, so we waste this turn doing nothing. The next turn, the Duck stays asleep for its guaranteed turn of sleep as we hit a Psychic that looks like it hits for around a third. Next turn, we repeat the same process as the sleepy Duck stays asleep. The Duck then stays snoozing for a third turn in a row, but a Psychic just misses out on the KO. Finally, after 3 turns of sleep, the Duck wakes up, hits an Aqua Step, taking us to the red, but we survive and finally take it down with a 4th Psychic. Honestly, if I had Recover on my moveset, that would have been a lot easier. Alright, it's finally time for the Elite Four. And look, it's another queer-coded character. This time, it's Rika, the Ground Specialist. She leads off the battle with Wishcash as we lead off the battle with our hard carry, Chris. And guess what? It's Oko time. The mustachioed fish goes down to a single quad super effective Leaf Blade. Next up for Rika is Camerupt, and I always assume this thing has really good defense because it looks really tanky. But it only has base 70 defense, so it easily goes down to a single Sacred Sword. Rika then sends out Donphan, and this thing is super annoying. This thing can't be Oko'd thanks to Sturdy, so a Leaf Blade just takes it down to 1 HP. It then strikes back with a strong Earthquake. But we live and finish it off next turn with a second Leaf Blade. This brings out Rico's penultimate Pokemon, Dugtrio, and this thing is speedy, so I have to switch. I go out into Jay, who tanks an Earthquake pretty well with its high HP stat. The trio then spends the turn setting up Sandstorm. Our Giraffe can then easily take it down with a single Psychic. Rika's ace is Clodsire, so I switch out into Siegfried, who is the hard counter. Siegfried is immune to Earthquake thanks to Levitate, and Toxic due to its Steel typing, so all it can hit us is Liquidation, so we can easily finish this turd Pokemon off with Ice Spinners. This Clodsire is honestly so annoying. It protects so much and takes so long to kill. Lucky for you viewers at home, you never have to watch it because I always cut out all those boring turns. Alright, it's time to take on the second Elite Four member, a literal child, and the Steel type specialist, Poppy. She leads off the battle with Caporaja as we lead off with Houdini. Turn 1, I Terra Houdini into a pure fire type and melt the elephant with a single flamethrower. Second for Poppy is Flarzong, and it suffers the same fate, going down to a single flamethrower. Corviknight is third, and you guessed it, it also melts to another flamethrower. Poppy then sends out Magnezone, and the sweep has to stop here because this annoying thing has Sturdy. We do take it all the way down to just 1 HP with a flamethrower, but it sets up a light screen which will prevent us from one-shotting her ace. I decide to try and stall the light screen out by setting up. I use Combine to raise Houdini's special stats as Magnezone hits discharges that do decent damage, but not too much. Unfortunately, we get paralyzed, meaning our plan is not going to work. I have to switch out now, so I go to Chris, who takes a discard on the switch and gets paralyzed. Well, that is extremely bad luck. Thinking I could survive a crit, I stay in and take another discharge that could have easily killed us with a crit. Chris then breaks through paralysis and finishes off the Magnet thing with a Sacred Sword. This brings out Poppy's ace, Tinkatud, and because we are paralyzed, this thing will outspeed us for sure. I take this time to switch out into our boy Siegfried. Tinkatud then uses a Play Rough, which we resist and barely does any damage. Next turn, Poppy goes big time and uses Gigaton Hammer. That tickles. our bell. An Earthquake then takes the Tinkaton to around half health. With Gigaton Hammer and cooldown, Tinkaton really can't hurt us at all. So we use Earthquake again and get a high roll, taking out the Tinkaton and winning us the battle. With each victory, we were getting closer and closer to a deathless run, and I'm getting more and more nervous. I really want this. It would be my first ever deathless hardcore Nuzlocke. But Larry is going to try and put an end to that. The average man, the third Elite Four member, and now flying user, is ready to take me on. He leads the battle off with Tropheus, as we lead off with Siegfried. On turn 1, Larry sets up the sun as we set up a Trick Room. Thanks to the combination of Trick Room and Bronzong's atrocious 33 base speed, Siegfried moves first and destroys Larry's Banana Baiter Pokemon with a single quad effective Ice Spinner. Larry makes a terrible choice and sends out Altaria. It's quad weak to Ice Spinner as well, so it easily gets destroyed by this move. Third for Larry is Staraptor, who annoyingly lowers our attack on the switch. With Trick Room still up, we move first and hit an Ice Spinner, but thanks to the Intimidate drop, it doesn't even deal half. The bird then uses super effective Thief to deal a good chunk of damage and steal my Never Melt Ice. Dang, this thing is so annoying. We will still outspeed, so we stay in and hit another Ice Spinner, and it takes the bird to the red. It retaliates with another Thief that takes us very low. Trick Room then runs out, so we can no longer outspeed this bird. And we are definitely dead to a crit. So I have to switch, and I go out into Chris, who takes neutral damage from a Thief. Chris will go down to a Brave Bird, so I have to switch again. I then make a super silly choice and switch out into Roy, who gets hit by a super hard Brave Bird. I'm trying to play around the crit, but honestly I'm not doing a very good job. The Staraptor does however knock itself out with the recoil. Larry then sends out Oricorio. Our boy Roy outspeeds, uses Morning Sun, and heals up pretty well, as the bird confuses me with a Teeter Dance. Next turn, I go for a Psychic, but Roy hits himself in confusion sadly. A Revolution Dance then takes Roy to the orange. So now I have to switch, as losing another Confusion Coin Flip in combination with another Revolution Dance would lead to the death of Roy. I switch out to Jay, who thanks to his massive HP stat can tank the dance. Next turn, Teeter Dance confuses Jay, but we break through the confusion and set up a nasty plot to raise our special attack 2 stages. Next turn we get hit with another Ralph Dance that puts us in the kill range, and now we have to play the confusion game again, but luckily we break through and Baton Pass out to Roy. And I actually made a pretty critical error. I'm sure all of you knowledgeable Pokemon experts out there are yelling at me through your screen. You see, when I Baton Passed my stats out to Roy, I also Baton Passed the confusion. So this means I will have to break through the confusion or just die. Luckily, Roy snaps out of confusion right away to use Morning Sun and heal up. Another dance then takes us back to the orange for the 100th time this fight. Knowing this time it might try and confuse me, I go for a Psychic and knock it out. This just leaves one final Pokemon, Flamigo, but it isn't exactly known for its special defense, so it also falls to a single Psychic. We are still deathless, even though we could have easily lost Roy to a crit that fight. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Honestly, it really is. It's time for the last Elite Four member, Hassel, the Dragon Users. And honestly, its Haxorus is extremely scary. Hassel leads off the battle with Noivern as we lead off with Jay. Turn 1, I Terra into a pure Ghost type, which means that Noivern goes for a Super Fang and misses a normal type move. Jay then sets up a Nasty Plot. Next turn, the Dragon Bat hits a Dragon Pulse for about a third as we set up a second Nasty Plot. It would be risky to set up another Nasty Plot, so after taking another Dragon Pulse, I Baton Pass out into Espeon. Hassel's only mon that outspeeds is this Noivern, so after it hits us to half health with a Super Fang, we can go on a sweep. As we go Dazzling Gleam, Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, and win this fight. I'm sorry I had to cheese you, but I really want this deathless run. Alright, it's time for the champion. And I never noticed this, but she says the weirdest thing at the start of this battle about being incapable of holding back. That's just not something a human would say, ever. Regardless, it's time for Chris Angel to do what he does best. Get Okos. Gita leads with Espathra as we lead off with the aforementioned Chris. The Gaga Bird outspeeds us and hits us with a Dazzling Gleam for less than half. Chris then starts the Oko train with an X Scissors that gets the kill on Espathra. Next out is Go-Go, and it goes down to an X Scissor as well. Avalugg then comes out right after that, and it is very bulky. But our Stab, super effective, sharpness boosted, expert bout boosted Sacred Sword takes it down in one hit. Next out is Veluza, and an X Scissor takes it down. King Gambit is out 5th, but it's quad weak to fighting, so obviously a Sacred Sword takes it down. And this just leaves her ace, Glamora, and you guessed it, the champion fight, completely taken down by all one-hit KOs. Chris Angel is an absolute monster. Never sleep on Glade. Alright, but that champion is just a warm-up for the real championship fight against Nemona. But we're going on an Oko spree again. She leads off the battle with Lycanroc as we lead off with Chris. Chris is holding a choice serve so he can move first. So a Sacred Sword one-shots the Lycanroc, the Palmy, the Dunsparce, the Orthworm. Nemona then sends out her Goodra, and unfortunately this thing stops her Oko streak by living on just 1 HP. Damn you, Goodra! Oh well, all it can hit us with is a weak Dragon Pulse, so next turn we can finish it off. Last out is Nemona's ace, Meowscarada, so I Terra into a Psychic type as she does the same, but for grass. Sacred Sword then hits for a ton of damage, but the cat lives, and because it's no longer super effective, we easily survive and finish it off with the 7th straight Sacred Sword of this battle. There's only one major fight left in this game, and I am so nervous. I want this Deathless run. I want it so bad. Alright, it's time to head down to Area 0, and on our way down, this scene happens, and honestly, it's really weird, because how strong is Arven? He legit grabs us with one arm, our full body weight, and then swings us back onto Koraidon. That is not something most humans can do. I don't even know if the Rock could do that. Having narrowly avoided death, let's finish this run and take on the final battle versus AI Zada. Robot Mommy leads off the battle with Slitherwing as we lead off with Roy. Roy is very speedy and strong, so he moves first and knocks out the Fighting Bug with a Psychic. Next up is Fluttermane, and I take this chance to switch out to Jay on a Shadow Ball who is immune. The next turn we get hit by a Thunderbolt for not even half, and then we set up an Agility. Next turn we outspeed and set up a Nasty Plot. A second Thunderbolt then takes Jay down to 10 HP. The following turn we Baton Pass out to Espeon, and now the one thing that could ruin my plan is getting paralyzed on the switch. But that doesn't happen, so here comes the sweep. Fluttermane falls to a Shadow Ball. Brute Bonnet, a Dazzling Gleam. Screamtail, a Shadow Ball. Sandy Shocks, a Psychic, and finally, Roaring Moon is no match for the quad super effective Dazzling Gleam. That's right, I did it, my first ever Deathless Hardcore Nuzlocke, and I am so happy. Honestly, going into this run, I had no clue what a beast Glade was with sharpness. It carried this run so hard. Seriously, just look at that Oko count. It is absolutely unreal. If you made it this far in the video, consider subscribing. And remember, shorts are comfy and easy to wear.